There is a King Kong of monopolies, the monopoly of monopolies, which controls Australia's toll roads, and it's called Transurban. And once a year, I go and have a little peek at the Transurban accounts just to see how much tax they haven't paid. Now, motorists are not going to be happy to hear this, but a lot of the escalation clauses in these various toll roads deals that Transurban has done with various state governments over the years, and a lot of these clauses, it's the best of both worlds option for Transurban and the merchant bankers that concocted this thing. Basically, a lot of tolls in the low inflation times were still going up by 4% because they did a deal, these guys, with the state governments to escalate tolls at 4% or CPI, whichever was higher. So when inflation was 1%, they were charging 4%, and now that inflation is 6% and rising, it looks like a lot of their tolls. You can check out the chart which is attached, which I found in the very bowels of an ASX presentation to investors. You can see your friendly local toll road charges and how much they are going to escalate by in the next few months. I always find it darkly humorous that the guys that concocted these toll roads and the structures, the financial structures, because basically it's just a big financial play, are people like the Macquarie bankers who live in the eastern suburbs and travel from, say, Bellevue Hill or Balmoral and Sydney's north and pay very little in the way of tolls. But it's the tradies coming the other way to work on their mansions coming from Western Sydney or Cherrybrook to the airport that are paying hundreds of dollars in tolls a week. If you're thinking about the Monopoly board, you're in a game of Monopoly. These guys are like sitting on every prime utility and bit of real estate. And the poor old motorists, as they're moving around the board, throwing the dice, they've got a little choice but to use these roads or make their travel time a lot longer. It's like just hoping you land on Community Chest or Chance, or you've got a get out of jail free card, because everywhere else you go, you're going to be paying these tolls. The other point is that the tradies are driving into the sun on the way into work and into the sun on the way back from work, while the bankers that concocted this stuff are not paying tolls and are largely earning the profits in their superannuation, because Transurban is one of the most profitable, fantastically financially engineered stocks on the share market. It's what they call a share market darling. Now let's have a look at some of the numbers here. Just looking at the balance sheet, they've got almost $18 billion worth of debt. So they gear this thing up, maximum leverage, because you can do it because there's no risk. You've got a government concession. It's like being given a tax collector's card to go out and just collect tax from motorists. The income statement for Transurban shows a tax benefit, not a tax payment, of $276 million last year from $193 million tax benefit the year before. They raked out $1 billion in dividends and distributions to the members. Because it's a trust, it's incumbent upon the members, not the company or the staple security in Transurban's case, to pay the tax. So the members are probably on 10 to 15%, so they're picking up nowhere near 30% tax. So this year, as tolls soar, earnings per share, the stock market analysts are saying, is going to go up about 50%. So they're going to have a 50% rise in profitability. They will pay no tax again. And whenever I call them once every year or so to find out about their tax situation, they always say, well, the way that this has been structured is that we're going to pay so much tax at the end of the concession, which is 30 or 40 years, right to touch up the motorists. But of course, I always say, well, what happens if you're not around in 20 or 30 years? You will have paid no tax, but you will have got a lot of profits for your shareholders and bonuses for your executives. And these guys are past masters at raking out bonuses, the Transurban executive elite. And also, of course, how do they get away with this magnificent little rort on motorists and the generous structuring and escalation clauses? They are big political donors to the major parties. So there we have it, the benefits of privatisation yet again. In this case, roads. But if we look at Qantas, if we look at the energy market, electricity, if we look at the NDIS, if we look at Job Active, the employment market, all of these things have been privatised. What about nursing homes? What about aged care? Privatise, costs through the roof. A party, a fiesta of middlemen and middlewomen. It's going to be an election issue in both New South Wales and Victoria because we've got state elections coming up in the two major states next year, and tolls are going to be absolutely soaring through the 6% mark. So there's going to have to be an inquiry into network user charges on roads. People are calling for it already. Now, here at the West Report and Michael West Media on the website, we don't charge tolls. They're not mandatory. You can pay a toll if you like in order to keep us churning out the content, keeping the buggers honest at the big end of town and politics. So help out if you can. And to those that already are, thank you very much.